Morning, welcome to Penrith. And looking behind me, you may think that this is another misty morning. Well, in fact it isn't. It's very dank and dreary and low cloud sort of a day. But I've set myself a little challenge today. I've had 3 misty mornings this week, which has been fantastic. And I've generally gone out with the same sort of setup. But I just want to mix things up a bit. A, to challenge myself, but B, to get me thinking differently and maybe taking some different shots. So, without further ado, let's show you in the bag, tell you what I'm going to do. Right folks, so today I'm going to be leaving the 24-70 and the 70-300 in the bag, and I'm just going to be taking this out. This is my Sony A7R2 and I've strapped on it a 85mm prime 1.4 GM lens. So a prime lens for starters, so no telephoto, and one with a really wide aperture at 1.4. So why am I doing this? Well, I just want to challenge myself. I want to do things a bit differently. So going out with that telephoto option is one thing, and also going out with the really wide options, wide open apertures, create some opportunities to try some woodland stuff in a slightly different format. So things I'm going to be trying today, and things I'd welcome your feedback on at the end, are depth of field. So I'm going to play with depth of field a lot, getting things in focus at the foreground or background and throwing the rest of the image out of focus. So I'm interested to see how that works out. And also the challenges created by going out with one lens at one prime focal length, 85mm. So I've got to attune my mind to that 85mm range when I'm looking for shots, so that's going to take a little bit of getting my eye in, and then secondly, you know, that challenge of trying to compose a shot where you've got no flexibility on being able to move your focal length. So yeah, I think it'll mix it up a bit and I'm looking forward to it. So I've come to a local woodland near where I am. It's a really sort of dark and drizzly, miserly day, one of them horrible days, but it's actually quite nice for woodland stuff, so it should be okay. Quick thank you to Alan Cook for a comment he made on the last video, which encouraged me to look at the camera rather than the screen. I do most of my videoing on a phone, so it's very tempting to look at the screen rather than the camera. So hopefully I'm trying to look at the camera a bit more than the screen. If I keep dropping back, I apologise, but I will try and get better at that. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the woods and see what it's like. So this is a nice little place to start. Love the browns on the floor and the greens and the rain. You can probably hear the rain. Just absolutely gorgeous. So this little bit here looks absolutely gorgeous. The vibrant greens, the brown on the wall, on the floor, and the sort of mist created by the clouds in the background. A bit of light in the background, which really helps. Thrown into the canopy, absolutely gorgeous. So I tried a couple of shots at f11 to try and get sort of everything reasonably in focus from front to back. But then I've tried messing about with a few with f4 and f2, focusing in on the trees in the foreground, just to see what impact it has on the diffuse in the background and throwing it out, and whether that's a neat effect or not. So we'll have a look at this and see what the difference is. I'll put both images up, the f11 and f4, and maybe the f2 as well, just so you can see what they look like. Okay, this is the raw file at f2. And I didn't really like the branch on the left hand side of this image. I found it very distracting, particularly from the composition going into the scene. The branch on the left hand side was very distracting. But when you have a look at it, as we pan across, you can see that the front of the image is very sharp, and even very shallow into the scene, this tree stump is out of focus. And as you go into the image, it's very, very soft, which is quite a nice effect, and I do quite like that. But I decided to change it to portrait to try and get rid of this tree. So this is at f4, and I've processed this one a little bit. And if you look at the tree just in the background there, you'll see it is still fairly soft. And then I went wider again to f11, and you can see that the tree second in is actually quite sharp and creates another effect again. Overall, I much preferred the portrait version. I don't think there's a lot to choose between f4 and f11. Right, here's another little scene I'm just playing about with. I love the sort of natural frame created by this branch. looking into the sort of lighter misted area at the back. So a couple of things I'm trying here. One is obviously trying to capture that as a picture, which I quite like the scene. But two focusing issues. One, focusing on the branch in the foreground that overhangs the scene, and the second one, focusing on the tree in the distance, maybe at a much wider aperture, just to see what difference that makes. Probably mean it'll throw the front branch out of focus, but it might draw your eye into the image, to the branches in the background where the mist is. So I'll try again two different apertures, one quite wide and one quite narrow, and just compare them in post-processing and see what they look like. So here we are starting at f11, and you see the branch overhanging the scene is sharp, but the background is actually still quite soft due to the mist. You can see here it is very, very soft and not in too good focus. When we move to f2, you see the front branch is completely blown out, but there's actually quite a bit more detail in the background. Where I was focusing, these trees in the background are a little bit sharper than they were at f11. So this is the image full at f11. I haven't bothered cropping this. I probably would have cropped the trees out on the right hand side, and this is at f2. And I think I marginally prefer this with the trees a bit sharper in the background. Come across these, which is quite cool. See if I can get down here and have a look at this. Hang on. Yeah, very nice. Quite interesting little scene. Little bits all over. I've only applied a basic edit to these couple of shots because I basically didn't like them too much, but you get an idea. Nice depth of field with the mushrooms, and the detail on these mushrooms is really something to behold up close. Now then, there is a little hut here that's featured in a super image. I can't remember who it was by actually, in Landscape Photography of the Year. It was commended. This little hut that's coming up in the trees. Now then, this might create a bit of interest. I just need to work out at 85mm where I can get a composition. So let me have a look around and see if I can find something that works with these trees. I'll come back to you in a sec. I sort of like it about here, with the tree just in the mist in the background. I like the green tree that's on the right hand side, sort of balances it up. But obviously at 85mm, and depending what aperture I'm shooting in, this tree in the foreground here is very prominent. So that's affecting, if I focus on that tree, the background's thrown out with a wide aperture. So I've tried a couple of different ways of shooting this. One with the background quite blurred, so you can just make it out, and one hopefully that I might need to focus stack just to get the full depth of field. But yeah, I quite like it. I'll move around and see if there's any other compositions, but I quite like this, but there might be another one a bit further around as well. So in this one, this is at f2.8 and focused on the tree in the foreground with the hut thrown out of focus. I don't really like that too much because there's no emphasis on the hut really. This is at 3.2 focusing on the hut, but I'm annoyed that the tree in the foreground is too prominent. It probably would have worked better with a similar setup to the previous shot. And this is shot at f8 focus stacked with two shots, one on the tree and one on the hut. And I think of all of them, I like this the best. Albeit I haven't processed this image, I do quite like it as a sort of base start, albeit there's a few distractions that are a bit annoying. Okay, I've moved around to this side, and Yeah, there's a couple of challenges. One is the path in front of it that you can see now, which causes a few issues. And the second is this tree just to the left hand side of the building. If you move around the other side, it sort of blocks the door off, and it looks messy. So this is quite a nice perspective, but I need to try and work it so that I don't get the path in, and I'm still far enough away to give the shed a little bit of space. So we'll have a go. Everyone's screaming now, we should have brought you 24mm. Yeah, well, I'm not doing that today. So let's have a look at it, see what it looks like. I do quite like this, and I've applied some basic processing to it. The only issue I have is that the shed is quite cramped in the scene at 85mm. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more space, but obviously the road in front of it does prohibit that slightly. So this is probably the best I could do from this angle, and I do quite like it. I talked earlier about trying to find areas of contrast. I'll try and show you what I mean here, because you've got quite a dark section here. Excuse the phone, but it obviously compensates for light, doesn't it? But then it's much brighter down here. So you've got dark and light. It's trying to find that balance between where the light's coming through to sort of create some natural light. These trees up here look quite nice. This looks like a lovely soft image. It's got this natural sort of tree just sitting in the middle of this composition here between the two trees, one on the right, one on the left, and also the pine trees in the background. It's just sat there nicely, and it's such soft diffused light at the minute. I think it'd be quite a lovely delicate shot actually. Just about the right distance away as well, I think, for this. So let's have a look at this one and see what it looks like. So you can see in this image at f8, this front branch is pretty sharp, and so is the background tree in the mist. And I quite like the other tree on the other sides, reasonably sharp, leading into the image. And overall, I do quite like the look and feel of this at f8. Now then, when we have a look at the same image but at f2.8, you'll see here that the foreground branches here are slightly out of focus. Now, as the background tree is not very prominent, I don't think this works as well. Certainly with the other tree in the foreground being out of focus, I just don't think the background tree being prominent enough works in this image, and I much prefer the sharper image at f8. But again, some of this is down to personal taste, and some of this is down to, you know, what you like and how you see an image. But for me, this one's just not quite as good as the other one, I don't think. Quite enjoying this. Another nice little one behind me that I've just been having a look at. Looks quite nice, and I'm starting to get my eye in terms of the distance and range and things I'm looking for. So yeah, quite enjoying this, and it's absolutely still as anything. I haven't even got a jacket on. It's sort of like real sort of mizzly, but it doesn't feel like it's wet. It's really odd conditions. It's like cloud, but it's not. It doesn't feel like it's. Sometimes you get drenched in this sort of stuff, but no, not today. But it's lovely. Absolutely, could hear a pin drop. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Here's one, beauty, lovely birch tree, just leaning against these pines. This tree here is quite a lovely shape to it as well, with the mist in the background. I might be able to do something with that, but I'm going to concentrate on this birch tree here if I can. It's lovely golden coloured. I just need to try and get it in a position where I've got quite a bit of clutter in front of me here that I need to try and get rid of. Try and simplify it if I can. And it's quite a tall one as well, which is going to be tricky at 85mm. I may have to do a little mini panorama just to get it in. Improvising. Let's see. I must confess here now, I really like this image. I spent a little bit of time processing it. You can see the almost oil painting like quality that comes out of the leaves of the birch tree. The fact it was sat in amongst the pines just added a lovely bit of contrast to the scene it's surrounded by. And I really, overall, just love this sort of soft diffused light. This is shot at f8, and then I shot the same image again and processed it slightly different at f2.8. And again, you can see the detail on the leaves at 2.8 is still really nice. The trees in the background are really soft. And to be honest, I don't think there's a right lot to choose between these two. But overall, I really like this image, and it's probably my favourite shot from the morning. Finally, a straight admission on this one. As I was editing this film, I zoomed in and saw this little composition, which is a straight crop from the original image. Not 85mm by any stretch of the imagination, but I do love this square crop with just the little trees in the background. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, conditions are changing a bit. It's getting the sun's starting to come through now. I've sort of walked down, I'm sort of not in the mist here, but looking back up the way. So this is quite a nice scene. Got the sun now coming through. It's got quite a bit of atmosphere. It's gorgeous. Just trying to pick off a few shots and see what we can come up with. Just completely different. It's changed. You know, a bit of light now is making all the difference. We'll see what we can do here. Quite like this tree here, just in the gap, nicely sort of separated. So let's crack away. So in amongst the uniformity of the trees, there is the odd sort of tree that sits prominently in a gap, and the light at the minute's really nice. And I think the other thing I found as well, and I'll show you in a second, is there's quite a bit of cobwebs and things in the heather, obviously where the spiders have been making cobwebs. So I'll show you this scene here, but I think there's a possibility we might be able to get both into a sort of an image, just to sort of create a bit of something different. The light's looking quite nice as well now, so let me show you this. Right, I'm obviously quite away from it at the minute, but in that gap there's a nice tree. And if I try and show you down here, I've got to be careful with my footing. If I go down, don't laugh. We have got this nice, nice wispy netting. It's right through the woodland. So I'm going to try and incorporate something into that, and you see the light at the minute. It's coming through lovely on the trees now. It's coming through gorgeous. You can see here with the image at f7.1, the foreground is nice and sharp, but as you go into the image it deteriorates and it's quite blurred in the background. That's at f11, and even at f11 focusing on the foreground still didn't help the situation. If you look here, as you move up the image quite quickly deteriorates because I'm quite close to the foreground situation. So what I then decided to do was try at f11 again, but this time focusing in on the tree, the central point of the picture. And what I did was convert it to black and white, and I think this is a much nicer image. This time focused on the central tree. Still see the wispy webs in the foreground as well, so it's quite nice, and I think I prefer this from the three. Close by I found this young sapling next to some heather and photographed it quite close, which enabled a much better separation, I think, between the foreground and the background. And this one was much more prominent than the previous tree, so I prefer this image from the previous one, I think. Well, that's about it. The mist has lifted, and I'm generally heading back towards the car. So once again we get to the end of a video where you'll have seen the images before I'm commenting on them. So was it worth it, this exercise? Well, for me it was, definitely. I don't know about you guys, but for me, yeah, just mixed it up a bit, I think. Got me thinking differently, got me looking at compositions differently, made me work a bit, made me think a bit in terms of depth of field and trying to use that to my advantage. I think I've become a bit lazy and a bit sloppy, and it certainly made me think a bit anyway. And I think there's quite a few nice images in there. It should be quite nice, I think, providing I don't mess it up on the processing. So if you've liked today's video, please subscribe. I am woefully short of subscribers. Share with your friends, get them to subscribe as well. I'd appreciate that, because I'm planning to do a lot more videos on different things over the next few months, certainly. And you know, so I'm knocking them out fairly regularly now. So hopefully, if you've liked what you've seen, hit the subscribe and the little bell notification thing, and you get a notification whenever I put a new video out. So until next time, folks, bye for now.